So here is Chapter 4. Our thesis: as the colonies of the Americas grew in size and wealth, colonists longed for acceptance as members of the English Empire. This, along with growing British patriotism, led to a series of wars that would further consolidate control in America. Notice the word patriotism is highlighted. This is because many of the events in this chapter are a result of growing patriotism in the colonies. This same patriotism, you may also want to keep in mind, will also shape events in the following. The start of this patriotism rests in colonial economic growth. As trade flourished in the colonies, a class of wealthy elites began to increase as well. These elites were typically farmers or plantation owners who would gain profit from the exploitation of slave labor. But with the increase in colonial wealth came also an influx of British trade regulations aimed at extracting as much profit from the colonies as possible. I'm sure you already have ideas as to what these regulations would provoke in the future. Nevertheless, the recently wealthy colonists would soon bring British culture and manners to the Americas. This British culture, adopted primarily by wealthy colonial elites, was soon passed on throughout the colonies.
Yeah.
Manners were passed on as well, until colonial America began to resemble England greatly. Just to recap, as a class of wealthy colonists began to be able to afford British-made goods, they adopted their manners and styles as well, thus passing them on throughout the colonies until the civilizations of the Americas and England began to look and act very alike. With colonial growth and wealth came also growth in population, thus increasing the need for expansion, which would obviously lead to dispute. Here's an explanation of the largest, the French and Indian War.
The French and Indian War was a territorial dispute over Canada between England and France allied with the Native Americans to fight against the England. This is the Ohio Valley, and north of the Ohio Valley was where the French were, and the south was where the English were, and the Ohio Valley kind of acted as a buffer between the two. So the French and Indian War is sometimes known as the 7-Year War in Europe because it started in April of 1754 and lasted till 1763, which was exactly 7 years. And it was a brutal war because many settlements were destroyed, people were killed, but it had like many impacts. Okay, so the impacts of the 7-Year or the French and Indian War was that Britain acquired Canada and all of France's territory of east of Mississippi, and Britain gained Florida from Spain. And after the war, England was in debt, so they taxed the colonizers more, and that made them angry. And they kind of had a common enemy to fight against. Okay, so the Englanders induced taxes, and the colonizers didn't like that, and that gave them a common enemy to fight against, and it united the colonizers because before the colonizers just coexisted in their own colonies, they never even communicated, but after the French and Indian War, they had a common enemy to fight against, and they were united, which after the heavy taxes led to the American Revolution in 15 years.
Though territory was ceded from the French, the Seven-Year War could also arguably be named the start of American resentment towards the crown due to the taxes that resulted from it. That pretty much sums it up, and if there's anything you need to remember, it's this. Patriotism gained speed greatly during this time, as colonists rejoiced in the grandeur of British identity, this same identity they would soon come to resent.